All right, we'll do that. And I know you also had the Time Magazine cover story about the expense of youth sports. Yeah, we had another news scheduled for the top of the hour, but I wouldn't mind clearing out for talking some of that at that point.
Because people immediately started texting about it at the top of the show. For all those people that were texting, we're going to go back and try to save some of those texts, get back to some of those texts. A lot of people, if you've got a kid in youth sports, I think the 4 o'clock hour will be for you because the money is astronomical, and I was not aware of it.
You see the pictures I was tweeting over the weekend?
Yeah, but I think these kids are doing something at a different level, though.
If you're talking about some of those kids, we were talking about playing for multiple elite teams and the actual travel costs and tournament costs.
$22,000 being spent on a child's sports life.
It's the mundane costs, even for house players. And the time and the gas.
I'm not belittling your time spent. I'm just saying, like, the real sports and the time piece I want to get into with you because you are a sports parent. I have my uncle is a sports parent. I've seen what soccer has done to my cousins' schedules and family trips that are planned around soccer. So if you're one of those parents and you're listening out there or you know one of these kids, I think 4 o'clock is for you.
Good. And look, I'm not crying for myself. I'm lucky enough to have enough discretionary income to help a kid enjoy himself and have fun at all these things and not want for some of this, not have to use a ton of used equipment.
Right.
But that's the thing.
And this is the filtering process that I want to address as well because
the arms race of kids, this kid's got his new bat.
Think about how we feel about public schools, not only in this city but across the nation, and how you're not guaranteed a level of education that your kid needs in many public schools. And then you have to go to the private school sector. Well, what is sports now doing? We'll get into it. Top of the hour. You're going to get a Sopranos reference, and that's why I love them. Welcome back to the Bernstein and Goff Show. Top of the hour. If you are a parent that has a child in organized sports, you have to be close to your radio. Maybe you can pull your kid close to the radio. Maybe you're a cousin or, an uncle or an aunt of one of these kids. We're going to talk about the cover of Time Magazine and also some Real Sports clips, spliced in there as well because Real Sports with Brian Gumbel did a segment on that. So we'll do that at the top of the hour.
Yeah, just really looking at what has happened, the multi-billion-dollar racket that youth sports has become. There's always been leagues, and the kids have always played. But
little economies for cities now, man.
Sure.
Like Real Sports opened I read the piece last night. I watched because Lawrence, dug it up, and shout out to Lawrence Holmes, who's always a fan and friend of the show. He found the Real Sports 13, 14-minute piece, and he tweeted it out. And I watched that this morning when I was brushing my teeth, getting Jace ready. I'm like, my God, Nicole and I are watching it while we're getting ready. I'm like, oh. And these are people, middle-class families who are, doing okay. Don't have life-changing money, but doing okay. See some of the SUVs that they're driving, their nice crib. They got 2 kids. The people that you will be hearing from the Coe family have a young lady in track. They're twins, track and baseball. And the travel leagues that this kid is in, the young man, the money that they're spending on these 2 kids. And hell, my little cousin Kate, I talk about my Uncle Wayne a lot, the police officer who works for CPD. Shout out to all the CPD guys and girls out there. He went through it with my little cousin Kate, where she played volleyball, she played basketball, and there was traveling. Every time you turned around, they were in Ohio or in Pennsylvania or in Florida for AAU and volleyball and AAU and basketball and AAU. And my cousin Ian, who had some interest in baseball later in life, and Temple wanted to give him a look. He thought it would be better if he went and served his country in the army. So
it's the hidden costs too.
I did not realize, bro.
And that's what I think Time Magazine did a very good job of. That when you say, okay, hockey, or especially travel hockey, and we're lucky that we accidented into hockey. We live literally around the corner from the rink.
Right.
And
convenient.
And we have given a couple opportunities. Somebody had said, will he play travel? And our response is no. The answer is no. You're not playing travel hockey because you're just not.
It's quite the obligation.
It's the money.
Time in the morning.
5 o'clock in the morning practices and some of the
swimmers.
Stuff. Oh,
like swimmers,
it's ridiculous.
I knew swimmers when I was a kid, and swimmers getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go get themselves in a pool.
Sure, but add with the hidden costs. You start talking about gas. You start looking at what the hotels for a tournament. Okay, great, 4th of July tournament. Oh, by the way, everybody's staying here, and we secured a team group rate. Okay, so it's 10% off the regular rate and the meals and all that. And you're looking at that. Just after a while, if you really go through the Visa bill and look at how many of these costs are related. In any way related to something you're doing, even if it's sort of like a third order expense because we had 2 cars, so she had to be here and I had to be here and we're meeting up here. And it is really astonishing.
312-644-6767 is the phone number. If you've got similar stories or can empathize with Dan Bernstein's comments on the Visa bill, actually the bill is actually mentioned in the Real Sports piece because the Co's just have a card for sports on file. Yeah. And they just call up and find out what was charged because after a while they know that you're not going to pull your child out of this, so you're going to get charged. Yeah, it was jaw dropping to me how much money is being spent. And I know you're out there driving around or listening right now in your cubicle and you're thinking, "Damn, Dan just explained my life." And it sucks because I mentioned it when I was doing baby shopping about how these stores are pretty much asking you, how much do you care about your kid?
Well, sure they are.
And I kind of feel like the same thing happens throughout a child's life, and especially with sports.
Join Play It Again Sports. I will tell you that. You join as a member. And that way,
no matter how much money you make, immediately.
No, I don't. I'm dead serious. Like if
just do it now. He's 8 months old. Just do it right now.
If your kid is growing, I'm telling you,
where you get some used Nerf hoops.
No, you can sell your old stuff. You can. You sharpen your skates every time you go in.
Play It Again.
And every time you go in, you think, what can I bring along? I dropped off a pair of goalie skates for consignment just this morning. And you start to look at it, it's like, all right, the amount of money that it can save you to get a used pair of shin guards, a used chest protector. Right. And maybe a kid says, I really want a first baseman's glove. All right, well, let's see if one fits your hand, and maybe we can do it that way.
This from the 630, are your children forced to play sports? We'll answer those questions, and you'll hear from some of those parents.
There's a complicated answer to that question.
Yes,
there really is.
312-644-6767 is the phone number. You want us to stick to sports? Well, we're going to talk about your money and how it's involved in youth sports and some of the economies that are sprouting up around this country and some of these small towns that are used to industry and steel mills and coal mines. Well, all of a sudden they're building basketball courts and soccer fields and baseball fields to kind of make sure that they don't go under as small towns. You'll hear from Real Sports. We'll read some of the Time cover story for you, and we'll hear your stories as well right here on the Bernstein and Goff Show, 670 The Score. Youth sports, and I hate to call it a racket, but for now I'll call it a racket. The racket that it is. I'm not in that zone yet. My son will be 9 months coming up here soon on the 16th of September. So I got a little ways to wait it. My guy says I should join Play It Again Sports right now so that I can get a jump on these things. But reading the Time.com piece, and it's the cover of Time magazine, and hearing the Real Sports cuts from the 14-minute segment that they did, and we might have a chance to talk to the actual interviewer of that segment. I'm only going to read a couple of paragraphs for you to get this thing started. We've already got a full bank of phone lines from all these parents who are ready to talk about what the economy has done to you and what sports has done to your children and how it's I don't want to say a drain money-wise, but how you're being forced now to pay for organized sports like never before. This written by Sean Gregory a couple of days ago at Time. He says, Joey Arachi knocks pitch after pitch into the netting of his $15,000 backyard batting cage. The pings from his metal bat filling the air in the South New Jersey cul-de-sac. His private hitting coach, who's charging $100 for this hour-long session, tells Joey to shorten his stride. He's accustomed to such focused instruction. The evening batting practice followed a one-on-one fielding lesson in Philadelphia earlier in the day, which cost another $100. Relentless training is essential for a top player who suits up nationally for ranked teams based in Texas and California, thousands of miles from home. But Joey has talents that scouts covet, including lightning quickness with a rare knack for making slight adjustments at the plate, lowering a shoulder angle, turning a hip to drive the ball. Quote, He has a real swagger, says Joey's hitting coach. Of course he would. That's Dan Hennigan, a former minor leaguer. As long as he keeps putting in this work, he's going to be a really, really solid baseball player at a really, really high level, unquote. Already, Joey has neon-ready nickname Joey Baseball and more than 24,000 followers on Instagram. Jewelry and apparel companies have asked him to hawk their stuff. On a rare family vacation in Florida, a boy approached Joey in a restaurant and asked for his autograph. But Joey Baseball has yet to learn cursive. He is, after all, only 10 years old. They snapped a picture instead. Joey Arachi is an extreme example of what is becoming new reality for America's aspiring young athletes and their families across the nation. Kids of all skill levels in virtually every team sport are getting swept up by a youth sports economy that increasingly resembles the pros at increasingly early ages. And it goes on to talk about families are spending. The cost for parents is steep. At the high end, families can spend more than 10% of their annual income on registration fees, travel, camps, and equipment. Big Joe Arachi, who owns a salon and spas in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, says Joey's budding baseball career has cost north of $30,000. A volleyball dad from upstate New York spent $20,000 one year on his daughter's club team, including plenty on gas, up to 4 nights a week. She committed 2.5 hours round trip for practice, not getting home until 11:30 p.m. Now, of course, these are extreme cases, but there are also cases like the Coe family that were on Real Sports.
It's 5 a.m. on a summer morning, but at this home in Northern Virginia, it's time to wake up and get going. Angie Coe and her family are packing to leave town again. How many weekends a year are you going through that sort of ritual?
30.
I'd say about 30.
About 30.
It doesn't stop.
Because the Coes are trying to raise young athletes. And in today's America, that means there's no time to waste. The Coes are one of millions of American families who spend much of their free time traveling the country so their children can play against others from far away. The families trade their time and their money in exchange for elite coaching, plenty of games, and better competition than the local Little League. This is the world of travel sports. Join it or be left behind.
And that's the part that's most startling to me, Dan, because you have a child that's in it now. We have a lot of people online who want to talk about this. And I don't want to sound like the old head, but I grew up in a time where you could play organized sports like Little League Baseball or join the basketball team, but you could also ride your bike and go play with whoever you wanted to and build social skills and get into fights and not have to worry about getting stabbed or shot. I know the climate has changed.
And not have coaches and umpires and officials.
And that's the thing. There's something special about not having adults rule over you as a child and figuring it out and not having to look for somebody to bail you out because they're an authority figure and figuring it out. And what's happening now to me, and from me just reading and seeing this piece, what's happening now is not only are you putting these kids in a special class, but what you're doing also is for the parents of the kids who don't have that kind of money, you are pretty much telling them that this is not for you.
Look what it's done to U.S. soccer. It's hurt U.S. soccer. That a lot of people in the sport say because you're limiting access to immigrant populations and to people where culturally the game is incredibly important, yet they're often kept out. They're not even exposed to it. They can't even really
you got to get 1 out of 100, get a scholarship or something like that.
Yeah, if you still have the elite level people playing at the top ends of the sport, you're not going to get the best possible players of a sport.
And I understand business. There's a filtration process. I understand that. But when we're talking about children, you know, just the way we feel now about public school educations and how a lot of parents feel, I got to get my kid in a private school to get a decent junior high / elementary level education these days. A lot of people feel that way. Hell, there's a lot of people who feel that way at kindergarten, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people who pay big money for their kids to not be in somebody's public school or going into first grade. Think about how you feel about that with education, and now transition that to sports.
Yeah, the irony is that people who are working so hard to get a Division I scholarship for their kid, if you did the math of taking all the money that you spend on equipment and costs and tournaments and all that, and actually were to track it in a 529 just invested in an S&P fund.
Oh, man. But some of the best advice I've ever gotten.
You would be, instead of spending all that money, then college, you wouldn't have to worry about a scholarship because you'd have enough to pay for all or most of college. Tony in Sauganash, you're on the Score.
Hey guys, I wanted to offer a different perspective. I've coached at two baseball academies, travel baseball academies up in the North Shore, and the parents there, it surprises me how varying levels of Marv Marinoviches that I run into. Mm-hmm. And I've had to tell parents, your son is good at baseball. He doesn't want to play baseball. He shouldn't be playing baseball. And they still try to ram it through. And I don't get it. I'm only doing this to kill a little time before I go back to work, and I want to learn how to coach my son if he wants to play baseball. Mm-hmm. But some of these parents are absolutely nuts. But
the crazy parent thing, we've done that before. Yeah, I'm talking about the skyrocketing costs of. And this is the thing too, and I don't know because I sent the piece to Tannehill to chop it up so we can get some of the audio from Real Sports. I don't know if he chopped this part up because I'm not looking at the cut sheet that he gave me right now. I'm being a bad host, but the level of childhood participation in these leagues is down. Only the parents that see this every weekend think that every kid is playing and every kid is doing what. Oh, come on, man! I'm a travel dad. I got to go here. I got to go there. Childhood participation in these organized leagues is down.
And it is a huge business.
Huge enough that now some down-and-out cities where the jobs and businesses have long gone are turning to, yes, youth sports tourism as a cure. Dev Patik, the youth sports consultant, was recently hired to help bring Rocky Mount, North Carolina, back from the dead. Rocky Mount's facility is set to open in about a year, and there are dozens more youth sports projects around the country coming soon to a city near you. It's enough to make you think that more kids are playing sports than ever, but this building boom will not benefit everyone. That's because as more and bigger facilities are being built, millions of kids are being priced out of the fun.
Sports participation rates in almost every major sport over the last 10 years have declined. So if you're a suburbanite whose kid is playing sport, you probably believe that more kids are playing sport, but it's not true.
Are children being left behind?
No question children are being left behind in sport, and they're being left behind because travel sports is dominating the landscape.
That's crazy.
And it was sent in by Joe, who said, my daughter's in ballet. Been in it since she was 2. She's now 7. Fees alone, it's $400 a month. Plus the cost of numerous costumes, equipment, special makeup. Some months it's close to $1,000.
It's a small mortgage.
He said everything involving children has turned into its own sector and industry. Yeah, everything's become a racket.
Yeah. How much do you care about your child? Because once your child gets that joy and that validation of not even being good, but being part of something, they got you. And they got you for as long as your kid wants to do this. And that's why you're checking in every week like, do you still want to do this, man? Because we out here, we eating top ramen instead of steak.
Not to mention, remember the unspoken commitment to the team and the same people. You've grown with these parents and you've known them forever. They're like, hey.
Your friends wear your uniform.
Like, I didn't know there was such a thing as spring hockey, okay? I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know fall baseball. I didn't know spring hockey.
Right,
but
you thought seasons just changed. You went on to the next sport.
But then you're at the end of the season, and you're like, they say, spring registration's tomorrow. Like, wait, spring what for what?
Right.
First year, like, what do you mean?
Thought we were good for a little bit.
Well, it's like if he's going to play, they got to see him in spring. I'm like, seriously? And then it's like, fall ball. We can get him on a fall ball team. Coaches calls, hey, can you play for a fall ball team? Like what? So that becomes a thing, and now that's second nature. It's like, and seriously, you're sitting by a pool at the Lincolnshire Marriott in the middle of July, and everybody's texting each other, recruiting the kids for fall ball.
Yeah.
It's like we're in the middle of our regular. It's like you're already putting fall rosters together.
It's a zone that many parents who never thought they would be in it get thrown in it and have to live in it because you don't want to let down your kid. It's why they throw all the sugary cereal commercials on during the cartoons and all the toys and everything because they know your kid is going to turn around while you're sitting there in your robe with no drawers on and look at you like, how much do you love me? Give me sugar cereal and give me this plastic toy.
Hey, we were
and
all
by
that
the way,
kid.
those Jordans. Yeah, we were that kid. But it cost a little bit different. I remember it was $160 to sign up for Pop Warner football. I looked at my dad. He was like, you ain't playing no football. You ain't ready for that. I'm like, Dad, you might be right. That's 4 video games. Make a pimp decision. I wanted 4 video games instead. I didn't play Pop Warner football.
I thought when I heard house hockey, I thought, oh, house hockey. There's 4 teams, and they all play in the same rink, and we go to this rink that's around the corner. Great. Yeah, can I play? Sure, it's house hockey. Let's play house hockey. Like, where's your first game? Kankakee or whatever. Crystal Lake. Like, what?
Dude.
What are you talking about? I had no clue. I played.
You thought it was like
house.
On the, maybe
house.
in the South Loop.
No. House means your house. It means your rink. You go there. You have team 1,
like
team 2, team 3, team 4, and everybody plays. They're like, no, here's the schedule. You're in Crystal Lake. You're in Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin. You're in Dyer, Indiana. Like, well, now I'm in this.
My uncle,
6 years later.
My Uncle Greg and my Aunt Kenya have 2 beautiful boys, and Sean and Ryan, who are terrific at soccer. Sean is stellar, and he gets great.
I've seen videos.
Yeah, he gets great grades, and I don't even bother to ask Greg what he is doing on the weekends. I don't. Right. I haven't hung out with my uncle.
He's probably
in
like
years.
Playing games in Honduras at this point.
Well,
right?
dude, they've had Puerto Rico tournaments, and he's talking about going to Spain next year.
Right.
And it's because he not only is he playing in it, but he's good at it. And the kids that are good at it, they know they target those kids. Oh yeah, his parents he wants to fertilize that dream. You know what I mean? He wants to make sure that kid develops. And I'm not just talking about him.
They lead you on until they're done with you, or until you get an injury,
right?
And then
until the kid doesn't want to play anymore,
and then you're a ghost, right?
But that money is spent.
Yeah, the kid's like, I don't like this that much.
Like $20 grand, $15 grand a year. Like that's
in Mount Prospect. Steve, you're on the score.
Hello,
Steve.
Steve. All right, we'll throw Steve back on hold and get to somebody else.
We'll try Jake. Hello, Jake. You're on WSCR.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My son plays travel lacrosse. He's played it for going into the 4th year. Basically, the league itself, just to sign up for fall, winter, and then summer league, it's $2,500 out the gate.
Mm-hmm.
And then, with where we have to travel, I bet probably another $2,500 in gas. With the hotel aspect of things, you're probably throwing another $1,000 to $1,500. So I'm $6,500 probably for that cost.
Without before any training or anything, right?
Well, yeah, because we have extra camps and stuff that we go to, no doubt about that. $500-600 there, and he walks under the field with probably wearing close to $1,000 in equipment because with lacrosse, you're buying it all yourself.
It's more than hockey, according to the Time Magazine piece. Lacrosse averages more than hockey. Total cost.
That does not surprise me from my experience so far, and he enjoys it and everything. But you guys are right in terms of the pushing and their enjoyment and how much you do it all. There's certainly a fine balance in there for damn sure.
Yeah,
but the kids also have to train on their own at home if you're going to be spending the money for them to do it all.
Jake's out there having his kid run wind sprints. Like, Dad, it's cold. Yeah, you know what? My pockets are cold, too. Keep it moving. Suicides, my friend. Yeah, Jake, you're going to have to invest in a dispensary or something here soon, man. It sounds like it's getting to you, brother.
That's always your plan, isn't it?
Man.
Always your plan is
two things
drugs
in this world that will never go out of style.
And drugs.
And drugs.
Sandwich, Kathy, you're on the score.
Hi there. How are you guys?
Good,
Kath.
Hey, listen, during this weekend, there was, I think, Maggie and Julie, I think, had a show, and they were talking about it, too, and I had spoken with them. But here's the deal. I'm a retired guidance counselor, and I would have a lot of kids, asking about the sports and all this stuff. So, and this is 5 years ago. I took a book out from the library. You would love this. The Most Expensive Game in Town by Mark Hyman, and they talked about the expenses and the percentages of kids that get into college that get scholarships. And it's amazingly low. And even in the amount of time from when I first started teaching and counseling, and by the time I retired, you never saw kids on crutches. It was like there's some car accident or something. Right. There are tons of kids on crutches in walking boots and all this stuff. The injury part of everything.
I forgot about the medical that you have to pay for as well.
Right,
don't forget that. But it's just absolutely incredible. But, you should see the statistics from this book. I could not put the book down.
What's the name of it, Kathy?
It's called The Most Expensive Game in Town, and it's by Mark Hyman, and it's 2012. So you're talking 5 years ago, and you can imagine what's gone on since then. And they're talking about fewer than 7 high school players in 100 move from prep to college teams.
Wow.
Yeah, and even that, Kathy, above and beyond that, especially in baseball, there's so few full scholarships given in Division I baseball because it's not a revenue-generating sport. We appreciate the call. It's almost all partial.
She wanted to get to as well the lies that are being told to kids, and that's another part of it too. The parents who they feel like the money that they spend, they have to get something out of it. And maybe your kid doesn't have the talent that you're trying to squeeze out of, the money that you're spending.
Let's see if we run through some phone calls here as we are talking about the HBO Real Sports story and the Time Magazine cover story that coincided regarding the cost of youth sports. It really has become a racket, an industry sector. John Frankel from the HBO piece, the reporter, is going to join us at 4 o'clock.
Also,
tomorrow.
what it's doing to people's time and stunning the growth of some of these kids who don't have any interactions with other kids outside of adult supervision.
Frank in Naperville, you're on the score. Hi, Frank.
Hey, fellas.
What's up, Frank?
My call, sir. How are you?
Good.
Hey, so real quick, last summer, spent $3,700 for a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old to play travel baseball. That's just the travel. That didn't count for the two trips out of state last year to Louisville and another out-of-state trip.
Was that for each one or total?
Total. I had a 10-year-old that cost me $1,400, and I had a 15-year-old that cost me $1,000. Now,
that sounds low, actually.
Both of those kids play travel football. The younger one, the 10-year-old, won the state championship in the UIFL for the Joliet Ravens. You know this in November, and in December, 3 weeks before Christmas, you've now got to find a hotel. You've now got to get travel arrangements and down to Tampa, Florida, to play in this tournament, which we end up playing a team from St. Charles for the national title all the way down in Tampa, Florida. So the travel cost, my 12-year-old travel baseball, knee surgery at 12. So then you've got the medical bills on top of that because he's a catcher and a middle linebacker. So between the catching and the middle linebacker taking hits to the knees at 12, his knees are already had damage to him. It's just the cost is – and now a lot of these travel tournaments that you go out of state, it's a stay-to-play tournament, which means you've got to stay at their hotels that tournament has already made arrangements.
That's pumping money into the city.
Part of it. That's part of it. Yeah, I've heard it. I was just telling Jason when my son's team was in Cooperstown, there were free agents in Cooperstown. There were 12-year-old free agents to be had. And teams were traveling 8 and signing a kid and adding a kid to their roster because they were just staying at the hotel. Hey, you need a catcher? You need an infielder? They just happened to be there. There were teams that were flying in kids game to game, flying in pitchers. And the team that I think won this most recent tournament owns its own practice facility.
That's, oh my God.
Year round. That they own their own building to train these kids for this tournament. I mean,
it just makes you feel weird.
It does.
I don't know.
And our coach is like, we're a neighborhood all-star team, In Kenosha, Drew, you're on the score.
Hi, guys. How you doing this afternoon?
Good.
So I had a couple things. One, I just wanted to say, I played I played Little League. I played travel baseball, high school baseball. And, I'm grateful to have a dad that never pushed me into anything. And if I wanted to quit, he would have, let me. And I know that because my brother did end up quitting. But the point is that I knew a lot of people in my town that played baseball because I played these different levels. And I'm not of the opinion that you really have to play a travel sport in order to get the ultimate goal, which I guess would be getting a college scholarship. I know plenty of people that played in the in-house league and just played in the high schools in the area. And I just think that if you are good enough, there's good enough high school instructors and good enough, coaches that if you're good, you'll get noticed whether you're on a traveling team or not.
Yeah, but a lot of these high school coaches make the travel feeder system a prerequisite.
Oh my goodness!
They aren't going to say like you are told this is if you're going to play on this high school, you've got to get on this track.
I'll never forget going into freshman year of high school where friends of mine who I thought were really good basketball players, and I'll never forget my buddy Bernard Pointer, who was like the best kid in the neighborhood. And I'd ask B, I'm like, you gonna play? He's like, no, man, I was actually at my family's place this summer, so I can't get on the team this year. I'm like,
Right.
what?
Right.
I'm in 8th grade, so I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yep, you're out of
He's like,
sight, out of mind.
man, Andy Horn and all those dudes were playing this summer with them, and they've already got their squad. And I knew for a fact that Bernard was better than everybody on that team, damn near. And it's like that's when I first, as a kid, was like, that happens. Like you have to be funneled into something.
Yep. You're shunted off into another track.
You go play community center rec league basketball.
And I'd prefer to have some more time with that guy from Joliet. But if your 12-year-old is having knee
I was gonna ask him,
right
does his kid still love it? Is he still?
Yeah,
that's the thing. Where are you putting so much money into it that you're trying to get something back out of it?
Well, yeah, that's kind of scary at that point.
Because he's still growing and he's having surgeries.
And Rockford, it is Chris on the score. Chris.
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call.
All right.
One of the greatest scams of all time is competitive cheerleading. It's amazing how much money and time my family's wasted over the past few years. I've got two daughters, one 14 and one 10. They were both on the same team last year. One of the situations is that the cheer team can participate in all these local cheer competitions in some of the suburb cities and whatnot. And then the certain events will be for a bid, and if your team wins a bid, then they get to go to Orlando, Florida, and participate in Summit, which is like the Super Bowl of cheerleading, of course. Mm-hmm. And if you win this bid, all it's really paid for is the team's entry fee. They then require you as a team to reserve 2 to 3 nights at Disney World and stay on property, and then you're on the hook for paying for your airfare and everything else.
And you can't, at that point, having earned that shot, you can't tell your kid no.
And it's about the financial and emotional investment. Yep. Chris, we appreciate the call. John Franco, who we'll talk to tomorrow about this, he talked to the Coe family about the financial investment and scholarships.
The organization that we're in, we have a credit card on file. We get an email to say, hey, we're getting ready to charge a credit card. So that's the way it is. You have to have a credit card on file.
So you don't even really recognize...
I don't even pay attention because we're not taking our kid out of it. That's just the way it is.
The Coes figure they spend at least $15,000 every year on sports for their twins, Eli and Jasmine. But like lots of parents, they think it will eventually pay off.
10 years at $15,000 a pop. That's $150,000.
Wow.
Is that a wise investment? Do you think you're going to see $150,000 in return on college scholarships?
Yes. Yes.
We hope.
Yeah. Yes.
Money is just part of the sacrifice. Most weekends they're on the road. The Coe family has to split up. Angie takes Eli for travel baseball, and Brian takes Jasmine to her club track meets. They make the commitment so their kids have a chance to be as good as they can be. It's a fact that youth sports organizers know and exploit. Eli's event in Myrtle Beach is essentially marketed as a national championship, but organizers hold the same tournament a dozen times a year in locations all over the country. The only difference is the color of the logo and the city.
It's as if somebody has created this world that every parent in the U.S. has got to get on the treadmill and run along with.
Yeah, I'm just sorry I wasn't the one that came up with it.
Yeah. Because it's big business.
It is a huge business.
Yep.
Do you hear a little bit of yourself in there? In terms of that, yeah, man, we're not going to stop because this is what it is, and the credit card on file.
Well, I've never done the credit card on file thing.
I'd be damned if somebody send me an email. I still, to this day, like, I pay the bills. Like, the automatic payment still seems a little intrusive to me. Like, I'd rather call and pay the bill or online and pay the bill. Having a credit card on file with a league, and they just say, hey, by the way, we're going to charge you here in 5 hours. That's amazing.
It's all about limits. And we put our foot down firmly when it came to travel level hockey. It just, no. We like where you are. We like your coaches. We like the rink. We like everybody.
How'd he take it?
We like that community. He was fine. He was fine. I said, do you really want the pressure? I said, you really want that? I said, you really want to give up a soft goal and look over your shoulder and have the coach pull you off the ice? You want that? I said, you want to have to go just sit down and do the walk of shame if you're having a bad day, or do you just want to just have a bad day?
Yeah.
and you get re-tiered in the NWHL, and they find teams that are about as, after the first 6 games, they move all the teams around so they match you up with teams that are about as good as you are, and that's your league, and you have your championship of that league. I said, isn't that more fun? Isn't that what you want? I said, you know what? And then when you're in high school, you'll see what you want to do. And so when you're in college, if you're a goaltender, there will always be a game for you.
Right.
They always.
Yeah.
I said, if that's it, if you decide once you're a goalie, you're never going to pay for a camp. You're never going to pay for rat hockey. And in college, and people be ringing your phone. Your phone will be, hey, we need a goalie. Hey, we need a goalie. We need a goalie.
There's a game here. There's
right.
a game there.
Always.
You'll always be able to play the sport.
Always. And look, we showed up for a practice. There was a guy who had to be 65 years old out there stopping pucks. I'm like, hey, look at that dude. That's an old fat guy. Where I
Loves the game.
forgot where we were, like Oak Park or something like that.
Yeah.
And, like, just playing. He was up at 6 a.m. to come play, and I said, you could do that. And he looks at me and goes, my hips will be shot by then. He said, that's a standard goaltender. He said, show me a 65-year-old butterfly goaltender that's got hips that are fake.
We didn't even delve into what the specialization of these sports and playing it all year round do to not only the bodies but the psyches of these young kids. We'll talk to John Frankel tomorrow about this as well at 4:00. He actually is the voice that you're hearing interview the Cole family and everybody on that Real Sports segment. I appreciate the interaction, and I've been enlightened by this as a new dad and things that are soon to come here. Not just, you don't have to worry about girls and driving lessons only these days when you got a young athlete.
I'm not always in a position to give great advice, but if the one thing I will tell you, 2 things. First of all, Play It Again Sports or one of these used and traded sporting goods places, critical, saves you thousands. And the other thing is, even if it's just a week or 2, get your kid in the woods. Send your kid with other kids to a camp where they solve their own problems, where they climb trees, where they chase frogs, where they put down the bat, they put down the glove, they put down whatever it is, the lacrosse stick, and they're just running around the woods and getting dirty and learning how to shoot a bow and arrow and start a fire.
For the people who can't get to the woods, find yourself a community center where you can just let your kids run around and learn problem solving and de-escalation of situations and learning how to shake a man's hand the way he should and look a man in the eye when he presents himself to him. Those kinds of things that I think are being lost while kids are on Twitter and on the video games and on tablets and not really being socially aware or conscious of what's going on around them.